This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag. Look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
Well, it's Sports 225, and I'm really tired because it's just been a long few days for me. But for Chris Blair, the voice of the LSU Tigers, he must be absolutely exhausted. Since we taped this show on Tuesday, you're watching it the first time, hopefully Thursday. So what time did you get to Tiger Stadium on Saturday to start with?
Well, exactly. I started to leave at noon, and then got caught up in the traffic, arrived at the stadium around 2:30.
Took you 2.5 hours?
Yeah, it was pretty tight. I moved pretty quickly until you get about 3 miles from the stadium. So then got there around 2:30, and then I think got home somewhere around 2. So it was close to a 12-hour day there, but you kind of expected. You knew it was going to be a circus, and it was in a good way. I mean,
right.
It was a great atmosphere, and so yeah, it was a long day. But as they say, when you're having fun, it's not really a job.
No, I mean, luckily for all of us, and but then you turn around and you've got the first LSU basketball game Monday night, and it's not like it's Sunday. With 2:30, even though you gained the hour back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Monday you had to work late, and then Tuesday I dragged your butt out first thing in the morning to come here. So,
no, that's fine. Like I told you, I think that, when you and I got together way back at the start of the year, people would ask about doing football, basketball, and baseball. But, when you get to sit front row at venues like that, to watch athletes like that, and that's not really a job. So not complaining at all. Happy to be with you here again.
I appreciate that. Well, Chris, of course, is in his first year as the voice of the LSU Tigers, replacing the longtime voice of the Tigers, Jim Hawthorne, who, so I made a joke watching the LSU-Wisconsin game, the first game of the year. I happened to be in Houston, but I was watching on TV, and I said to my wife, I said, well, you haven't met Chris Blair, but I bet he's really eager to call his first touchdown, which really took forever. And, of course, everybody wanted to know, is Chris going to have a signature call? And I was just laughing at the idea that you were waiting, calling this game. It must have crossed your mind. I haven't even had a chance to call a touchdown.
Really, it's funny because I think a lot of people on the outside would look at it that way. In fact, some of the guys that we work with behind the scenes of the network, at halftime said, man, it would be nice if they would give you an opportunity to do that. But, you get so locked in for every snap. And every series, and then a punt or whatever happens, and then you switch to offense and defense. It's almost as if you don't really have time to think about, boy, if I could do this, and man, if this happens, because you're really locked in on every single snap, isolated within itself.
So you really do take it one play at a time.
Yeah, I really do.
You have to.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah, right,
I mean,
exactly.
There's so many moving bodies and moving parts and things that happen that, it's. Jim told me a long time ago, and we had a laugh about this. I got to watch basketball last year without having to work. I got here in town and got to finish the season there. Got to go to a football game last fall, and one of the things Jim told me, he said, I hope you enjoy the football game tonight. It's the last one you'll ever get to watch. And there's a lot of truth in that.
I know exactly
because it
what
just
you're
happens
saying.
in little snippets as it goes along in a 3 or 4 hour game that I could literally walk out of the press box and people say, hey, what about that tackle in the third quarter? And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be able to recall that because it's so, just super focused on every play.
When a million years ago, when I covered Southern basketball, and Ben Jobe took over as the coach, and Ben was of the theory that if you haven't shot in the first 8 seconds, you failed on offense, basically. And I had a 3-color, sometimes 4-color charting system, and I would keep up, but you'd be constantly back and forth like this, and then go ahead and write the story. Well, it's all fresh in your mind. So it's like this 3-hour blur, right? You cover it that fast, and you write the story, and then maybe have a beer with somebody, and they go, well, tell me about the game. I got nothing.
I know. I mean, we're constantly reading stats. We're constantly, relaying that information to the listener. But again, it comes so fast, and each play in each series is kind of its own little act in a multi-act play that once the game is over, it's very hard to just simply recall.
Well, then I made the joke after 4 games. I said, I'll bet one of these days Chris Blair is actually going to get to call a touchdown in the fourth quarter for LSU, which didn't score. They didn't score a touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Right.
For the first 4 games of the year, which is incomprehensible.
Yeah, it was. When Coach O changed that, it was a kind of a big moment. There was a big roar at Tiger Stadium.
Well, that was against Missouri, wasn't
against
it?
Missouri,
yeah. Which, as it turns out, that Missouri was absolutely awful. And all that offense they ran up that day was kind of fool's gold when you fast forward like 6 weeks. But at the time, it was really cool. And it must have been fun for you, because it is fun as an announcer, a play-by-play guy of the home team, to get a lot of exciting plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you look for. I mean, those are the big moments. And, the other part about it that, again, because it wasn't such a big focus of mine, the defense this year under Coach Aranda, has been playmaking since the start of the season.
But they were great against Wisconsin and have been all the way through.
Yeah. And they make great plays. So you get some of that as well. And I know a lot of people look to scores as being the ultimate. But, sacks are fun, interceptions are fun, big tackles for loss. And they've been plenty of that all season.
I'll bet that first interception was a lively call. Of course, I was in the stadium, which was about as loud as I got to give the LSU fans credit, because a lot of times they're overrated. But for that game, especially on defense, and especially in the first quarter, when Alabama was down on the south side there, it was quite noisy. Chris Blair's here. He is a first-year LSU football, basketball, and baseball announcer. He came on the show last year shortly after he got the job, but like I teased him then, hey, you're not even doing anything. What's hanging out, to studying. We'll talk LSU, Alabama, and all sorts of other things when we get back to Sports 225.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College, and I really encourage you to come out to our 12-acre campus here on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge.
Contact ITI to enroll in our Construction Management Associate and Occupational Studies degree program. Learn to plan, coordinate, budget, and supervise construction projects, and collaborate with engineers and architects in the residential, commercial, industrial, and heavy civil construction industry sectors. Call now about this new, exciting career degree. ITI Technical College. Begin your journey to a better life.
All right, back on Sports 225. Chris Blair's here. He's the LSU football announcer who has had an interesting season. It must have been, as the announcer of the team and somebody close to the whole thing, you get emotionally involved, even though, you just detach yourself, but you're still, you're on the team, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so you get to know Coach Miles and you get to know Coach Cameron, who are wonderful people. And then, because you might have been in Baton Rouge shortly after the whole November fiasco last year. Then you figure, hey, I'm getting to know these guys. We're in the system. They're nice people, and the rest of the staff, and they're gone. And then you bring in, Coach Orgeron is a wonderful guy too, and everything. But you must have been riding an emotional roller coaster yourself.
Well, it is interesting because you do get emotionally invested. And I've said all along, when people accuse announcers of being homers, I think that word is tossed around very loosely these days because there are certain announcing jobs where that's not appropriate. Mm-hmm. Television being one. I mean, you've got to be
especially
even for both sides.
TV.
Yeah, network TV. You're appealing to both fan bases and both audiences. But when you work with the team and you go to practice and you travel with them and you get to know them, both the student athletes and the coaches, you become, I won't say close friends, but you certainly have a lot of feelings for those people because hopefully they're nice to you, which everybody at LSU was, Coach Miles included, and you get to see the way he handles himself around players and around other people, and you have a lot of respect for him. So anytime somebody is taken away from a position, whether it's fired or leaved or resigned or retires, you kind of have that feeling of, you put yourself in their shoes.
Right.
And when you're close to those people, it does become something that maybe a lot of people don't get to feel. But it was kind of an up and down season. I knew that there were high expectations, as there always are. I knew all of the things coming off of last fall and the drama that happened in November.
Right.
But then there was so much momentum in the offseason.
The recruiting was great. The public relations was fantastic.
Hired some great coaches.
Yeah.
You had a number of players coming back. So even though the expectations are always high, you just had to know they were even a bit higher coming into 2016. And after week number 1, and the loss at Auburn, you just had a feeling that, in this day and age, college football, especially at this level, important decisions have to be made, hard decisions have to be made. And once that decision was made, you kind of move forward. But
No, you
again,
have to.
Yeah, but again, I have nothing but the greatest respect for Coach Miles and Coach Cameron.
But to your credit, and I've listened to you call a few games now, and large portions of a couple. And even though you work for the company, I mean, Chris is paid by LSU to call LSU, but you don't call the game like a homer. And
Well, thank you.
And that's good. And that's a really good thing. I mean, and
Well, I've always
and is
thought
it, and oh,
there's
go
a
ahead.
philosophy behind it. And one is because if you get so much to one side, whether things are great or things are bad, eventually even the most ardent listener or attentive listener will sometimes realize, I'm not sure, is he really telling me the truth? I mean, is he really saying things are bad? Because most of the time things are always great. So I find you never want to put yourself in one of those ponds if you can just stay kind of down the middle. But, I've said since day one, I think it's pretty obvious when things are going well for the Tigers, the inflection in my voice and the cadence of my voice, you probably can tell without me saying the score. And on the flip side, I think when things haven't gone well, I think you could tune in and in about 10, 15 seconds figure out, Tigers having a rough day.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of games, and I still maintain this, that as it turned out, Wisconsin was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And to score 14 points against Wisconsin with that defense they have, and considering the offense that LSU has minus 2 games, is not a bad loss in the grand scheme of things. And Auburn's pretty good, too. Like, there were a lot of question marks about Auburn coming in. So the 2-2 record that LSU had at the time when the coaching change was made, it wasn't like they were terrible.
Correct.
It was a very fine line there.
Yes.
In those two, from being 4-0.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anyway, that's just I've been on this big shtick about that whole thing.
No, and I think ultimately sometimes we get lost in we do. I do. Fans do. Media members do. That you get so tied into the coaching and decisions that are made when it really comes down to young men playing the sport. There's a play here or there, and we could be standing here today with LSU with 1 loss to arguably one of the best defenses in modern college football in Alabama, and an offense that was averaging 44 points a game held to 1 touchdown and a field goal. So, when you look at it and you see 3 losses, sometimes you think, did coaches make a mistake here? Did they not prepare the team? But it really comes down to guys playing and sometimes not making enough plays against good teams.
What was the last football game you called in your old job?
Was in December, the GoDaddy Bowl in Mobile, Georgia Southern and Bowling Green. So it was December 21st.
Yeah. And then the next, when you consider the Alabama defense, my gosh, I will tell you this. The 2003 LSU defense was as quick and good as I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And that Alabama defense the other day, which was only a shade better than LSU's. You can't give LSU enough credit on defense. But my gosh, that Alabama defense closed like nobody's business. Those kids, I mean, just all 11 of them all the time just seemed like nobody was getting a break.
No, and it was such a small margin of error.
Yeah.
You were going to have some opportunities, and when you had those opportunities, very small windows, you had to capitalize. And there were just a couple of times where they had guys open, just couldn't get the ball to them in time. There was a time where an umpire wouldn't get out of the way of Leonard Fournette. They did a dance there when Leonard, I think, probably just 1 or 2 steps makes a first down, keeps a drive alive. And those are opportunities against a team like Alabama that you have to be able to create. And when you're not able to, you end up losing 10-0.
Did you use the phrase at all in your broadcast about the first guy who blinks or anything to that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You did?
I really felt like it wasn't a matter of which team blinked first, but who blinked last. I had a feeling that LSU's defense could turn over and take away the football from Alabama, which they did twice. The interception you alluded to, and then the strip football that they were able to recover. But I felt like even going into the game that it would be who blinked later in the game. And as it turned out, especially deep, when we got to the 4th quarter and realized nobody had scored a touchdown yet, you just had a sense that whoever gives up a score, whether the offense gives them a pick 6 or a fumble, scoop and score, or an offense is able to score, that may be the difference in the game. And as it turned out, Jalen Hurts with a 21-yard touchdown, albeit a lot of jerseys in the hands of Alabama offensive linemen, but that neither here nor there. But once that happened, you kind of felt like it was a heavyweight fight where each guy was exchanging blows, and it took that one that made them wobble. And you've seen it 1,000 times, and I think that touchdown LSU wobbled a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Chris Blair, he's the announcer who calls LSU football right now, and, well, he's already started basketball, and he's got baseball ahead of him. He's a busy man. I'm Lee Feinswag. When we get back on Sports 225, we'll talk some more LSU football. We'll be right back. Oh, hi. I was checking out Yelphi. I do it all the time, all day, because it brings me all the news I need to know in sports. I mean, I've got a customized news feed, real-time scores. It's integrated with Facebook and Twitter. You download it on iTunes, Yelphi, Y-E-L-L-F-Y. It's a great app and a fantastic Twitter feed. All right, we're back on Sports 225, hanging out with Chris Blair. He's the announcer for LSU Sports. I like that. That's an announcer for LSU Sports.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
Good.
I've been called a lot worse.
I'm not going to call you anything bad. I'm generally pretty nice to my guests. I can't remember the last time. I did get Johnny Jones got a little fluffed at me, I think, a couple of weeks ago when I suggested that this is a very pivotal season for LSU basketball.
Well, it seems hard to me in this atmosphere to be able to not be relaxed. It seems like a very relaxed mood. So yes, I can't imagine a lot of tension on this set.
Too bad you weren't ever here in the old days when we had the big Barco Loungers and then the Lazy Boys, and we used to have live music off to the side. It's a changed digital world. We had to get ready. See, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you see everything that you see behind me, it's all fake. We're in an empty room. Now you knew that, but. So we had to get rid of the Lazy Boys because they rocked and they screwed up the green screen. So the first time that I had my old Kermit the Frog mug, which you would have never seen, but Kermit the Frog's green.
Yeah, no,
and he's got a microphone, a little press sticker, and I held him up and you had to get a drink of water, and it's like, all you can see is a couple of eyes.
Well, I'm glad I didn't wear green today.
So it's all changed, and of course we shoot during the day. We used to be live on Monday nights for about maybe 15 years.
Live without a net's always fun.
Oh, it was good. But we used to a lot of local blues and internationally recorded artists would come in and stuff. Now it's just boring, just two old guys like you and me talking.
I guess.
Now I think if you're watching this, I hope you think this is good conversation. At least until then. One of the big things and you haven't experienced this, but I'm curious to your perspective, is that over the course of the last few years, especially since LSU lost to Alabama in the national championship game, but even in times before that, this was a pivotal game not only to decide who might win the national championship, but that the loser has a so-called hangover. And LSU traditionally has lost to Alabama and then gone totally into the tank. And it's a weird thing.
I certainly understand that. And looking back at the history, I mean, first of all, when you watch that game on Saturday, you realize it's a physical game. And one of the things I heard the national media say more of on Saturday night, Sunday, and even early this week has been that's a physical football game the way it's supposed to be played. A lot of people like to see the 66, 59 scores, a lot of offense and a pillow fight defensively. That's not what you get. I mean, it was a physical game.
It was old-timey football.
So I think both teams come away with that, trying to get back healthy, ready for the next opponent. Obviously, It helps when emotionally you feel good about the win. So you can tell how the hangover effect would happen. What I like about Coach Orgeron, and he said it since day one, is they weren't looking to SEC West titles. They weren't looking to the SEC title game. They weren't looking to bowl games. They were looking game to game to game because, let's face it, it's a on-the-job audition for him. There's really no other way to do it than the way he's doing it. I got to prepare each week. And to me, the Alabama game was not the game that either gets him the job or doesn't get him the job.
I agree.
I think it's the month of November, and it starts with Arkansas.
No, I agree with you totally. And the idea, Matt Moscone asked me last week on the radio, says, if he beats Alabama, does he guarantee himself the job? And I said, no, because what happens if he beats Alabama and then loses 2 of the next 3 or, all of them? And the team doesn't look good, and then they go to a bowl, which, of course, by then, they'd have already made a change if they're going to make a change. I think you judge the body of work. I was having a conversation with somebody just on the drive over here that it's not just in sports, but especially in sports and in football season, but every day in life. Every day is a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. Don't rush to judgment. Be cool. And then in football, it's a 12-game season. In his case, a 7 now, because he misses out on that game. How weird is that freaking Florida situation or whatever? That was your life must have been crazy because you were going to the game and you build into a frenzy to go cover the game.
Well, you just didn't know because we prepare all week to get ready for a game.
Yeah.
And even when you get to Thursday and there's a process that maybe they won't play, we can't assume they won't play because we have to be ready. Had they said, hey, fire up the Jets and let's get to Gainesville or Tallahassee or wherever they wanted to play. Yeah. But going back to Coach O, that's what impresses me the most about what he's been able to do, and that is, really break this team down and get them focused week to week. And, I think when you left Tiger Stadium Saturday, obviously upset at the 10-0 loss, but I would challenge most LSU fans that you had to be proud of the way that team played. Again, It was, to me, one of the best games played all season, and defensively probably one of the best games that we've seen in a while.
Well, we got to get out for this break, but if I had told you in the third quarter of the LSU-Wisconsin game that I would give you a 10-0 loss to Alabama and you had chances to have actually won the game earlier, you just said, I'll take that. What do I need to bet on it? He's Chris Blair. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
It was nearly a decade ago that Brett teamed up to Imagine Your Parks, and you imagined big. 12 beautiful community parks from one end of the parish to the other, one family-sized water park, and 5 other parks just for your dogs. You have places to splash and places to explore. You have games to play and camps galore. No matter what you like to do or see, visit Breck.org and see how together we have made Breck better than imagined.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, Chris Blair's here. Take care of some business first. I always do this at the start of the last segment because then I forget going in. But thanks to John Williams from JCW Productions and jcwproductions.com for directing the show. That was almost my radio voice, but it was breaking, whatever. Live from the Sports 225. Anyway, so go to sports225.com for all the show listings for Cox 4, CST, and to watch any of the old shows, and this one on the Sports 225 YouTube channel. So, all things considered, so you've been through almost 2/3 of the football season, and you've already started basketball. Are you having fun? And is it everything you were hoping it would be?
It's funny because I've told you how excited I was when we got together back at the start of the year. And I had expectations of what it would be like, and it has honestly really blown those expectations a lot farther than I even thought. I mean, it is so much fun to get up and go to work. It's so much fun to travel. A lot of times you look at football and basketball overlapping, it becomes a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, you got a few weeks in there that's going to be hard.
But it's so much fun.
Right.
I mean, to do a great game like Saturday and then jump in on Monday and do a basketball game, when you love sports, it's just a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm having a blast.
Because of that overlap and LSU playing a road game on a football day, I'm the only person who got to cover every one of Shaquille's college basketball games because they had to send a substitute radio announcer for one of those games. I want to think it was in a Hall of Fame game up in Massachusetts, but gosh, I can't even remember it so long ago. Anyhow, I know way too random. I know the football's magnificent, but Georgia Southern was good in football. The basketball is where you're really going to love it. The SEC is probably a little bit underrated, and it's really going to be fun. I think you're going to really love the season of the SEC basketball.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like the venues. I like the characters that are in the coaching world here in the SEC. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I got to be honest, being around Coach Jones in preseason, I think this team is going to be fun to watch. It's really going to be 5 guys, 6, 7 guys that have to play together. And if they do, I think some good things can happen. So it's going to be them against the world, and I'll be right there to see it all.
And let's hope, whatever. Thanks for coming on. Great to catch up. Good insight on a lot of things. You're announcing the football and other things.
Well, thank you, Lee. And thanks for the water, and thanks for the shirt. I wear it proudly all the time.
And thank you to watching. Good night. Go away. Go home. There you go.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the Moors marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die. Poetry was everywhere. Sweet music filled the air.